My name is Elena Marquez. I'm 31 years old, and until recently I was engaged to a man who believed my love would keep paying his bills long after he stopped loving me. I run a logistics consulting firm now, but 6 years ago, firm was a generous word for a used ThinkPad 3, unpaid invoices, and a woman surviving almost entirely on instant noodles and denial. I started the business when I was 25. My original plan had 2 steps. First, avoid becoming homeless. Second, possibly make money. The first few years were brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks, slept with my phone beside my face, and woke up convinced every unknown number was either a new client or a debt collector. Most of my income went directly back into the business. For nearly a year, I lived on my older sister Daniela's couch. Daniela was 34, worked construction management, and possessed absolutely no ability to soften an opinion. When I told her I was launching a consulting company, she stared at me over a carton of takeout noodles. So you're going to advise companies? That's the idea. On what? Supply chain efficiency. She took another bite. You can't efficiently supply yourself with rent money. Coming from a woman who once repaired her truck window with duct tape and a shower curtain, the criticism felt unnecessarily personal. Still, she let me stay. She never asked for rent. She only demanded that I stop leaving spreadsheets open on her television and replace the coffee I kept finishing. Then, about 2 years ago, everything changed. I landed 3 major contracts within 5 months. Large manufacturers were losing millions through inefficient distribution systems, outdated inventory methods, and poorly negotiated freight agreements. It turned out people were willing to pay extraordinary amounts of money to stop bleeding cash. My first truly significant payment arrived on a rainy Thursday morning. I stared at the number in my business account for several minutes because I assumed the bank had made an error. Daniela looked over my shoulder. Well, she said, apparently you do know something. Thank you. Don't let it go to your head, nerd. After that, the company grew quickly. I hired staff, moved into a proper office, and reached the point where restaurant prices stopped controlling my breathing. I bought a house, adopted a golden retriever named Pickles, and finished the project Daniela and I had been working on for almost 4 years, restoring a 1967 Chevrolet Impala. We found the car rusting behind an old farmhouse. Daniela insisted we could save it. The Impala became our weekend therapy. Daniela handled the bodywork while I obsessed over engine specifications. We argued about paint carburetors, replacement parts, and whether inhaling fumes counted as emotional bonding. When we finally finished, the car was stunning. Midnight blue paint, chrome bumpers, a rebuilt 327 small block engine that growled like something alive beneath the hood. Pickles loved sitting in the back seat, although Pickles loved almost everything. The shelter described him as special. I later discovered that meant he once got his head trapped inside a cereal box and accepted death rather than attempting to back out. Honestly, we understood each other. I met Nathan Vance 6 years ago. He was 22 then, working as a receptionist at a prestigious law firm while dreaming of becoming an art curator. Nathan was beautiful, in a quiet, polished way. Dark hair, careful clothes, and the kind of smile that made you feel as though he had chosen you from a crowded room. But what drew me in was his passion. He could talk for hours about Renaissance painters, exhibition design, and the emotional effect of placing one painting beside another. He made me care about brush techniques created centuries before either of us existed. When I introduced him to Daniela, she waited until Nathan went to the bathroom before leaning toward me. He's too handsome for you. Thank you for the support. What's the catch? There isn't one. There's always a catch. Pickles immediately loved Nathan because Nathan gave him half a sandwich without being asked. About a year into our relationship, Nathan confessed that he was considering abandoning his dream. Tuition was expensive. Internships were unpaid. His student loans were growing. I made him an offer. Quit the law firm, I said. Finish your degree. Take the internships. Build the connections you need. I'll cover the expenses. Nathan stared at me as if I had handed him a second life. Why would you do that? Because I believe in you. He wrapped his arms around me. We're going to build everything together. I believed him. But I was also a businesswoman. Every major amount I gave Nathan was documented as a loan. Tuition, rent deposits, transportation, professional courses, each came with a simple agreement, stating the amount and repayment conditions. Nathan signed every document without reading more than the first paragraph. "It's just paperwork," he would say. "It protects both of us. We're getting married someday, Elena. None of this will matter." At the time, I thought his confidence was romantic. Now, I understand that he never imagined consequences could apply to him. Nathan's best friend Blake disliked me almost immediately. Blake was studying social theory, lived in an apartment funded by his parents, and believed every financial disagreement proved that capitalism was collapsing. He visited the apartment I paid for, ate food from my refrigerator connected to my internet, and then lectured me about wealth inequality. Daniela met him once. Afterward, she said, "That man has more warning signs than a construction site." Nathan's older sister Megan was different, but equally exhausting. She worked for a luxury candle startup and spoke as though she personally controlled the global economy. She regularly asked me for financial favors. "If you're already paying Nathan's car," she once said, "could you help with mine until my company takes off?" I said no. Blake later accused me of using money to create hierarchies of dependence. Meanwhile, Nathan's lifestyle expanded. His old studio apartment became embarrassing, so I leased a downtown loft with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The security deposit and first year's rent totaled $25,000. Nathan signed the agreement. Then came the BMW because he claimed he could not arrive at gallery events by bus. He signed another agreement. Then graduate school, specialized courses, conferences, clothing, allowances, art supplies, flights, hotels, gym memberships, organic groceries, and professional networking events. Over 6 years, I watched Nathan move closer to his dream. I mistook his progress for our progress. Our 6th anniversary fell on a Tuesday. I left work early, carrying a sapphire bracelet that matched his engagement ring. I had reserved a table at a restaurant he had wanted to visit for months. When I reached his apartment, he wasn't home. At first, I wasn't worried. By 7:30, the bracelet was still inside its velvet box. My phone buzzed. Nathan's message contained only 3 lines. "I found someone better. We're done. Don't contact me." 6 years ended in fewer words than I used to order coffee. I sat completely still. My first instinct was to call him. Demand an explanation. Ask who she was, how long it had been happening, and whether any part of our life had been real. Then something colder replaced the panic. Nathan had not asked for space. He had terminated the relationship. So I typed 2 words. "As you wish." Then I called Daniela. "Elena," she answered. "What happened? I need somewhere to stay tonight." Her voice changed immediately. "What did he do?" I read her the text. Silence filled the line. Then Daniela exhaled slowly. "After 6 years, he did it by text." "Yes. Come over." I closed the bracelet box, opened my laptop, and logged into my banking portal. Nathan believed he had found someone better. What he had not yet realized was that almost every beautiful thing in his life had my signature beneath it. And within the next 3 hours, I intended to remove every one of those signatures. I removed Nathan from both of my credit cards first. The change took less than a minute. 1 click beside his name, 1 confirmation code sent to my phone, and every card in his wallet became a useless rectangle of plastic. I stared at the screen after the account updated. There was no satisfaction yet, only a hollow pressure beneath my ribs, as though my body had not decided whether it wanted to scream or stop breathing. Daniela sat across from me at her kitchen table, still wearing her work boots. "What's next?" she asked. "The BMW." Nathan's monthly payment was due in 4 days. I canceled the automatic transfer immediately. Because I had co-signed, the lender could eventually come after me if Nathan defaulted, but I could deal with that through proper channels. What I would not do was quietly continue paying for the car of a man who had discarded me by text. Then I opened the apartment lease. Nathan's credit had never been strong enough to qualify for the downtown loft, so the lease was entirely in my name. I found the termination clause, 60 days notice, and a penalty equal to 2 months' rent. It would cost me thousands. I submitted the termination anyway. Daniela watched me type, "You're losing money." "I've already lost more than money." Her expression softened. For once, she had no joke. Next came the subscriptions. Streaming services, meal deliveries, organic grocery service, art supply memberships, the luxury gym with eucalyptus towels and smoothies that apparently justified a monthly fee large enough to cover a normal person's utilities. I canceled them all. Then I removed Nathan's phone from my family plan. Every cancellation email felt strangely ceremonial, like cutting one thread at a time from a net I had spent 6 years weaving around us. The wedding was more painful. We had chosen an October date. The venue was booked. The caterer had been paid. The photographer had already taken our engagement pictures beneath autumn trees, while Nathan laughed into my shoulder as though I were the safest place in the world. I called every vendor. The florist sounded genuinely sorry. The venue coordinator paused before asking, "Are you certain you want to cancel?" I looked at Nathan's final message again. "I found someone better." "Yes," I said. "I'm certain." By the time I finished, I had lost nearly $18,000 in non-refundable deposits. Daniela leaned against the counter. $18,000 is brutal. The whole wedding would have cost $45. So technically you saved $27. That is an aggressively optimistic interpretation. It's my gift. The engagement ring required legal advice. Nathan's sapphire ring had cost $15,000. It was custom-made because he once told me diamonds were predictable and sapphires reminded him of old royal portraits. I called my attorney Philip Grant the next morning. Philip had handled my business contracts for years. He spoke calmly even when delivering information that would terrify most people. "Engagement rings are conditional gifts in this state," he explained. "The condition is marriage. No marriage, no completed gift. So it still belongs to me." Legally, yes. I sent Nathan a formal demand for the ring's return. His response arrived 20 minutes later. "You gave it to me. It's mine." Then another message followed. "I'm not returning something that represents your commitment to me." I read that sentence twice. He had ended our commitment, yet he still wanted to keep the symbol of it. Philip filed a civil action. Nathan apparently assumed I was bluffing until a judge ordered him to surrender the ring or risk contempt charges. 2 weeks later, it arrived at Philip's office in a small, padded envelope with no note. I sold it back to the jeweler for $12,000. The loss hurt less than expected. The ring had already become something ugly. Then came the part Nathan had forgotten. The contracts. I opened the filing cabinet in my office and removed 6 years of signed agreements. They were organized by date and category: apartment deposit and rent, BMW expenses, graduate tuition, specialized courses, conference registration, travel, professional, clothing, career development costs. Every document carried Nathan's signature. Some had little hearts beside his name. On one he had written "future husband repayment plan" as a joke. I sat alone in the conference room adding the balances. The principal amount was enormous. With the 6% annual interest specified in the contracts, the total came to $115,000. For the first time since receiving the breakup text, my hands stopped shaking. I drafted a formal collection letter. No insults. No emocional accusation. Only dates, amounts, signatures, interest calculations, and a deadline. Nathan had 30 days to repay the balance, or I would begin formal collection proceedings, including credit reporting, civil litigation, and possible wage garnishment. Philip reviewed it and approved every line. I sent it by certified mail. Daniela read the final copy over my shoulder. "You just turned heartbreak into an accounts receivable problem. It's easier to understand that way. That is either brilliant or deeply concerning. Probably both." The silence lasted 1 week. Then my phone exploded. Nathan's first messages were furious. "What did you do to my cards? I'm standing in a store, and everything is being declined. This is humiliating. You cannot cut someone off without warning." I stared at the screen. Without warning. He had ended our engagement in 3 lines, while I waited in his apartment, holding an anniversary gift. More messages came. "We were engaged. I never said I stopped caring about you. I needed space to figure out what I wanted. You're acting like a vindictive psychopath." Then the story changed again. I deserved better than someone who would punish me for being honest. And finally, "Rachel says this is financial abuse. She's helping me find a lawyer." Rachel, the mysterious someone better, finally had a name. I did not respond. Nathan had explicitly asked me not to contact him. I was simply respecting his wishes. By Monday, he had called 17 times. The voicemails shifted from anger to panic. "Elena, call me back. You can't cancel the apartment. I have events coming up. My internship coordinator wants to know why I missed a meeting. Rachel thinks what you're doing might be illegal. My sister says, this proves you never actually loved me. Tuesday afternoon, the certified mail receipt confirmed delivery of the debt letter. Wednesday morning, my phone rang at 6. The number was blocked. I answered without speaking. Nathan's voice erupted through the line. $115,000. Are you insane? I ended the call and blocked the number. Thursday evening, I was at Daniela's house when someone began pounding on the front door. Pickles barked and ran in a circle, convinced the noise was either danger or dinner. Daniela looked through the window. There's a man outside with green hair and a notebook. Blake, the warning sign guy. The same. She grinned. This might be entertaining. I opened the door. Blake stood on the porch holding several pages of handwritten notes. I am disgusted by you, he announced. I glanced at the notebook. Did you prepare a speech? This is not a joke. What you're doing to Nathan is textbook financial abuse and emotional manipulation. I stopped paying for an adult who ended our relationship. You are destroying his life because your ego cannot handle rejection. Daniela appeared behind me, arms folded. Blake continued reading. You used financial support to create dependency, and now you're weaponizing that dependency to punish him for exercising personal autonomy. I waited until he finished. Your parents pay for your apartment, correct? His jaw tightened. That is irrelevant. They also bought your car. That is family support. And they pay your tuition, phone bill, and groceries. My parents do not expect romantic access in return. Neither did I. His face flushed. I expected Nathan to honor loan agreements he voluntarily signed. He signed them because he trusted you. He signed them because I gave him money. You think you owned him? No, I think he owes me. Blake slammed the notebook shut. This conversation is over. You came to my sister's house. You're too manipulative to understand what you've done. Karma will handle you. He stormed toward a compact car, parked at the curb. Daniela watched him leave. He brought notes. I noticed. Do you think he practiced in a mirror? Definitely. The next morning, an email arrived from Nathan's attorney, Robert Bobby. The subject read, Urgent cease harassment of Mr. Nathan Vance. The email contained dramatic accusations of predatory lending, emotional coercion, and unlawful financial control. It demanded that I restore Nathan's access to my accounts, continue paying his living expenses, and suspend all collection activity. I forwarded it to Philip. His reply came 20 minutes later. This should be enjoyable. Philip sent Robert copies of every agreement, every transfer record, and every email in which Nathan acknowledged receiving the money. His response was only 2 pages long. The loans were documented. Nathan received consideration. The contracts were enforceable. Any allegation of fraud or coercion would require evidence. There was none. That afternoon, Daniela called me laughing so hard she could barely speak. You need to check Nathan's social media. I opened the app. A video showed Nathan standing in a gallery parking lot while a tow truck lifted his BMW. Rachel was arguing with the repossession agent. She wore a fitted white suit and pointed toward the car, as if confidence alone could stop machinery. You need to show some respect, she shouted. I'm handling this. The driver did not even look at her. Move away from the vehicle, ma'am. Nathan stood beside her, pale and speechless, while several gallery guests watched from the entrance. The BMW disappeared onto the street. Daniela sent another message. Someone better doesn't appear to have better credit. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I watched Nathan's face as the car vanished, and understood that this was only the beginning. For 6 years, he had mistaken access for ownership. Now every borrowed piece of his life was being returned to its actual source. And soon he would discover that Rachel's glamorous world was built on borrowed things too. The repossession should have been enough. Any reasonable person would have accepted reality after watching a tow truck haul away a luxury SUV in front of colleagues. Nathan wasn't a reasonable person anymore. He was a desperate man, trying to convince himself that everything collapsing around him was somehow my fault. Over the next 2 weeks, the consequences multiplied. The apartment lease officially entered its termination period. Without my credit, Nathan couldn't qualify for another place remotely close to what he'd been living in. The collection notice appeared on his credit report. Then another. Then another. Every lender that reviewed his file saw the same thing. Outstanding contractual debt $115,000. Apartment applications disappeared. Credit card approvals vanished. Vehicle financing became impossible. Meanwhile, curiosity got the better of me. I asked Philip to run a basic background check on Rachel Collins, not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted to know what kind of woman Nathan believed was better. The report was almost embarrassing. Rachel wasn't a successful real estate developer. She was a mid-level real estate agent. Her social media was an elaborate performance. Luxury cars. Mostly dealership inventory photographed before showings. Designer penthouse views. Vacation rentals used for content. Business meetings. Open houses. Her credit score sat below 600. 3 late car payments. Maxed out credit cards. Minimal savings. Daniela laughed so hard, she nearly spilled coffee onto my dining table. So, he left a millionaire for an influencer with debt. I don't think he knew. He didn't ask. Neither of us said anything after that. The silence answered everything. Nathan hadn't chosen Rachel because she offered a better future. He chose her because she made him feel exciting again. Fantasy always looks richer than reality. Reality eventually sends invoices. A few days later, Philip informed me that Nathan's move-out date had been finalized. To avoid accusations from either side, he arranged for professional movers and created a detailed inventory of Nathan's personal belongings. Everything would be documented. Everything would be supervised. Everything would be filmed, exactly the way business disputes should be. Moving day arrived at 10 in the morning. I parked outside the building and immediately spotted trouble. Rachel stood beside Nathan, wearing oversized sunglasses and expensive-looking heels. Megan leaned against a black SUV, scrolling through her phone. And Blake had somehow managed to produce an actual protest sign. It read, "Financial abuse is domestic abuse." I blinked twice. Daniela had taken the morning off work specifically because she refused to miss what she called the live season finale. She climbed out of my truck. He made a sign. I see that. I honestly underestimated his commitment. Before I could answer, Blake raised his phone. "We're live," he announced to his followers. "We're documenting economic violence against an innocent man today." Daniela whispered, "Please tell me he's not getting paid for this." I sincerely hope not. The movers arrived a few minutes later. Their supervisor introduced himself. Billy, a broad-shouldered man who looked completely immune to nonsense. Philip greeted him and handed over the inventory. Billy flipped through several pages. "So only documented personal belongings, leave." "Correct," Philip replied. "No furniture, no fixtures, no shared property, no exceptions." Rachel immediately stepped forward. "I'm Nathan's partner." Billy nodded politely. "Congratulations. I'll be directing today's move." Billy looked back toward Philip. "Is she authorized?" "No." Billy closed the folder. "Then she'll observe." Rachel's smile disappeared. Nathan tried diplomacy first. "Elena." I looked at him calmly. "What? Can we not do this today? We're already doing it." "I mean," he hesitated. "Can't we be reasonable?" Daniela folded her arms. "Reasonable ended the moment you sent a breakup text." Nathan ignored her. He looked only at me. "I know things got ugly. They became ugly because of your decisions. I never wanted this. You wanted someone else." His shoulders slumped. Rachel immediately grabbed his arm. "Don't apologize." "I'm not apologizing." It sounded like it. Philip interrupted. "Let's proceed." The movers began carrying boxes. Nathan wandered through the apartment slowly. He stopped beside the custom walnut bookshelf I had commissioned for his art collection. "I picked this." "You selected it," I corrected. "I paid for it. It belongs in my life. It belongs to whoever purchased it." He grabbed one side anyway. Billy stepped directly into his path. "Sit." Nathan froze. "That's not on your inventory. I've used it for years." Billy didn't move. "I've used my toothbrush for years. It still belongs to me because I bought it." Daniela coughed to hide a laugh. Rachel stepped in. "This is ridiculous." "No," Billy replied. "Ridiculous is trying to steal furniture during a supervised move." Blake swung his phone toward Billy. "You're participating in financial oppression." Billy stared at the camera. "I'm participating in moving boxes." Blake wasn't finished. This woman weaponized her wealth against a vulnerable man. I finally answered. "Blake, what? Did Nathan ever tell you he signed every agreement voluntarily?" He trusted you. Did he tell you he broke off our engagement by text? Blake hesitated. Rachel answered, instead. That doesn't justify ruining his future. No. It justifies collecting a debt. Nathan suddenly exploded. I gave you 6 years. I looked at him. So did I. I supported your career. I never asked you to. You wouldn't have become this successful without me believing in you. Daniela actually laughed out loud. Nathan. Everyone turned toward her. My sister built her company before you even knew what a gallery internship was. His face turned bright red. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. She pointed around the apartment. Every single luxury you enjoyed came from her. You lived here. You drove her car. You wore clothes she paid for. You attended conferences she funded. And somehow you convinced yourself you were doing her a favor. Rachel squeezed Nathan's hand. Let's just take what's ours. Billy handed Philip another checklist. Everything authorized has been loaded. Nathan looked around desperately. He wasn't mourning furniture. He was watching an entire lifestyle disappear. The movers closed the truck. The apartment echoed. It no longer looked like the carefully curated home Nathan had filled with expensive art books and imported decorations. It looked like what it really was. A leased space whose owner had finally reclaimed control. Rachel broke the silence. We'll be fine. Nathan nodded weakly. Yeah. We'll figure it out. I almost believed they might. Then reality caught them faster than I expected. Rachel lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Officially, unofficially, the lease allowed only 1 occupant. Less than 2 weeks after Nathan moved in, the landlord discovered he was living there permanently. Both of them received violation notices. 30 days later, eviction paperwork followed. At the same time, Rachel's carefully curated social media image began falling apart. Someone noticed dealership plates on one of her luxury car photos. Someone else recognized a vacation rental she'd claimed was her penthouse. Within days, people started questioning everything. Her engagement dropped dramatically. Potential clients quietly disappeared. Nathan watched the fantasy collapse from inside a tiny apartment that barely had enough room for 2 people. Meanwhile, Blake continued posting daily lectures about toxic masculinity. His live streams became increasingly aggressive. He uploaded clips of me from moving day without context. Philip filed multiple copyright and harassment complaints. The platform removed several videos. Eventually, Blake's account was suspended, pending investigation. Daniela called me immediately. The revolutionary has been deplatformed. I suppose he'll survive. He'll probably blame capitalism. Megan attempted something even more unbelievable. She created an online fundraiser titled, Help Nathan Recover from Financial Abuse. The campaign described him as a victim whose wealthy ex-fiancé had weaponized love. Within 48 hours, it had collected exactly $180. Then someone reported it for fraudulent claims. The platform removed it. Nathan's professional life suffered even more. Word spread quietly through the local gallery community. Not because I launched a smear campaign. Because public drama has a way of introducing itself. Gallery directors dislike controversy, especially when it arrives carrying lawsuits. One evening, I attended an exhibition sponsored by one of my firm's clients. I wasn't thinking about Nathan. I genuinely liked the artist. As I entered the gallery, a curator I knew approached me. I'm glad you warned us. I wasn't warning anyone. You saved us from hiring someone who brings legal chaos everywhere. Before I could answer, I saw Nathan. He stood beneath a modern sculpture, laughing far too loudly at something no one had actually said. The laughter stopped the moment our eyes met. He looked thinner, more tired. Less certain. Rachel wasn't with him. Instead, Blake appeared from somewhere between 2 installations. What are you doing here? He demanded. Looking at art. You're not welcome. The invitation says otherwise. He looked around nervously. No live stream. No audience. Just visitors quietly enjoying the exhibition. His confidence shrank noticeably. I smiled politely. I hope your evening improves. Then I walked away. I spent another 15 minutes speaking with artists and sponsors. As I left, I glanced back. Nathan was still pretending everything was normal. But no one seemed interested in maintaining the illusion anymore. 3 months passed. Business flourished. Pickles continued, proving daily that intelligence was optional. The debt collection process moved forward, exactly as Philip predicted. Then, on a rainy Friday evening, Daniela came over to my house. We ordered pizza, started a multiplayer game, and for the first time in months, I almost forgot Nathan existed. At exactly 9:07 p.m., Pickles began barking furiously. Someone was pounding on my front door. Daniela muted the television. "You expecting anyone?" "No." I walked to the entrance and looked through the peephole. Standing beneath the porch light was Nathan. His expensive coats were gone. His hair was unwashed. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. For the first time since I met him, he looked genuinely defeated. Daniela leaned beside me. "Is that your ex?" "Yes," she sighed. "I've got a feeling this night is about to become very expensive for somebody." I unlocked the deadbolt. The moment the door opened, Nathan pushed past me without permission. Nathan shoved past me as if he still belonged there. Pickles barked furiously, planting himself between us. "Easy, buddy," I said quietly, keeping one hand on my dog's collar while never taking my eyes off Nathan. He looked nothing like the polished man who had walked through art galleries, wearing tailored jackets, and talking about Renaissance exhibitions. His designer coat was gone. His beard had grown uneven. His eyes were bloodshot, and the confidence that once filled every room had completely disappeared. Daniela muted the television and slowly stood. She crossed her arms. "I hope you realize breaking into someone's house isn't exactly a great legal strategy." Nathan ignored her. He stared only at me. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do. You owe me 5 minutes. "I don't owe you anything." His jaw tightened. "My entire life is destroyed." "No." I calmly closed the front door behind us. "Your decisions destroyed your life." He laughed bitterly. "You really believe that?" "I know that." He paced across the living room. Rachel left. I remained silent. My landlord evicted us. Silence. My internship is gone. Silence. My gallery contacts won't answer my calls. Still silence. Finally, he looked directly into my eyes. "I'm living in my car." For a split second, I remembered the man I had fallen in love with. The man who stayed up until midnight discussing paintings. The man who kissed my forehead after long workdays. The man who once promised we'd build a future together. That memory lasted less than a heartbeat. Then another memory replaced it. "I found someone better. We're done. Don't contact me." My sympathy disappeared. "You made a choice." "I made a mistake. They're not the same thing." He stepped closer. "You have no idea what it's been like. I know exactly what betrayal feels like." His shoulders slumped. "I thought." He stopped himself. "You thought what?" "I thought Rachel had connections." I almost smiled. "You thought she was richer." "I didn't leave because of money." No. "Then why?" He looked down at the floor. For the first time in years, I felt exciting again. Daniela burst into dry laughter. "Exciting." Nathan turned toward her. "This isn't funny." "Oh, I know." She pointed toward me. "You threw away the woman who worked herself half to death building a business so you could chase excitement." He rubbed both hands over his face. "I wasn't thinking." "I've noticed." He looked back at me. "I know I hurt you. You humiliated me. I panicked. You planned an affair. I never meant for things to become this bad. You sent 3 sentences." His voice cracked. "I thought you'd move on." "I did. I didn't think you'd." He struggled to finish. "Take everything." "I didn't. You took my home. It was my lease. You took my car. It was my payment. You destroyed my credit. You signed the contracts. You ruined my future." "No." I met his eyes without raising my voice. "You traded your future for temporary excitement." The room became painfully quiet. Nathan sat down heavily on my couch. "I can't pay $115,000. I know. I'll never make that kind of money. That isn't my responsibility. I work in a coffee shop now. I know. They garnish almost everything. I know. I can't start over." "You already did." He looked confused. "The moment you texted me." Tears filled his eyes. "I still love you." Daniela actually groaned. "Oh, don't do this." Nathan ignored her. "I was stupid. I was selfish. I let people get into my head. Rachel, Blake, Megan. They kept telling me I deserved more." He laughed weakly. "I believed them. And now, I'd give anything to go back." I took a slow breath. "If you could go back, would you choose me?" Or would you choose the life I paid for? His mouth opened. Nothing came out. That silence answered every question I still had. He wasn't mourning me. He was mourning comfort. He was mourning security. He was mourning the luxury apartment, the BMW, the conferences, the expensive dinners, the certainty that someone else would always solve his problems. He wasn't grieving love. He was grieving convenience. I walked toward the front door. This conversation is over. I'm not leaving. You are. No. You can't make me. Daniela picked up her phone. I was hoping you wouldn't say that. Nathan frowned. What are you doing? Calling people whose job is making stubborn guests leave. She dialed 911. Hello. We have an unwanted person inside my sister's home. He's refusing to leave. Nathan's eyes widened. You called the police? You refuse to leave. You can't do this. I literally can. He started pacing again. This is insane. No. This is trespassing. Within 10 minutes, 2 patrol officers arrived. One of them recognized the situation almost immediately. What seems to be the problem? I answered calmly. My ex-fiancé entered my home and now refuses to leave. The officer turned toward Nathan. Sir. Nathan pointed at me. She's ruining my life. Did she invite you inside? No. Were you asked to leave? Yes. And you're refusing. Nathan's voice became louder. She's financially abusing me. The younger officer glanced toward me. Mom. I handed him copies of the restraining documentation Philip had already prepared in anticipation of future problems. Attached were copies of the debt agreements. The officer skimmed the paperwork before looking back at Nathan. This appears to be a civil financial dispute. It's abuse. No. It's a debt collection. Nathan became increasingly emotional. You don't understand. I have nowhere to go. The older officer sighed. I understand that. But that's not her legal responsibility. Nathan looked at me one last time. Please. I didn't answer. He lowered his head. For one brief moment, I thought he might finally accept reality. Instead, he whispered, I hate you. I looked directly into his eyes. No. You hate the consequences. The officers escorted him toward the door. He didn't resist. He simply looked exhausted. As the patrol car disappeared down the street, Daniela slowly closed the front door. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Finally, she turned toward me. You okay? I looked around my quiet living room. Pickles rested his head against my leg. The house felt peaceful again. I think, for the first time in months, I actually am. The following morning, Philip accompanied me to the courthouse. Given Nathan's trespassing, repeated harassment threats, and refusal to leave my property, obtaining a restraining order was straightforward. The judge approved it. Nathan was legally prohibited from approaching my home workplace or contacting me directly. If he violated it, he would be arrested. The debt collection continued exactly as the contracts required. Philip arranged automatic reporting. Every month, the balance accrued interest. Nathan could negotiate repayment. He could declare bankruptcy. Or he could continue ignoring reality. The choice was finally his. 3 weeks later, Daniela arrived carrying 2 coffees and wearing the same grin she always had before, suggesting something reckless. You know what today calls for? What? A victory drive. I smiled. The Impala? The Impala. 20 minutes later, we rolled the cover off the midnight blue Chevrolet. The chrome reflected the afternoon sunlight. I slid into the driver's seat. Daniela climbed into the passenger side. Pickles immediately jumped into the back. I turned the key. The rebuilt V8 came alive with that familiar, deep growl we'd spent 4 years chasing. As we pulled onto the highway, warm summer air poured through the open windows. Daniela leaned back comfortably. You know, what? 6 months ago, Nathan wanted you to sell this car. He said it wasn't practical. And now? I smiled as the engine echoed across the empty road. Now nobody gets to tell me what parts of my life are worth keeping. She raised her coffee. To contracts. I laughed. To boundaries. She nodded. And to never confusing generosity with obligation. The sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon. For years I believed love meant giving until someone else had enough. I was wrong. Love without respect becomes exploitation. Kindness without boundaries becomes permission. And trust without accountability becomes the easiest thing in the world to betray. Nathan thought he had found someone better. In the end, the only person I needed to choose was myself.